Now, before going to the application, I would like to go through some basics of flow cytometry in brief. Now, these are the different flow cytometers which we use for the flow cytometric analysis of different samples. And before using flow cytometer, we process the sample. So how do we process the sample? So we have a sample in which we have red blood cells and WBC or the tumor cells. So we first get rid of the RBCs by putting a lysing reagent and lyse the RBCs. And then we get this WBC and we put the antibody which are specific to the different proteins attached to the fluorochromes. And these antibodies are then these cells which are attached to the antibody and fluorochromes, and they run through the flow cytometer. Now, flow cytometer basically works on two principles. One principle is to measurement of size and the complexity of the cell. So the cells when it come in front of the laser light is diverted in forward direction by the size of the cell. So larger the size, higher the diversion. Smaller the size, the lesser the diversion. And at the same time, the laser light also is diverted in the side of the cell as well as the right angle of the cell based on the number of granules or the vacuoles within the cell. So the side scatter basically indicates the granularity and forward scatter indicates the size of the cell. Now, another important principle of flow cytometry is identify the different proteins present on the cells as well as inside of the cell. So what we do, we use antibodies, the antibodies which are attached to the fluorochromes. These antibodies then bind to the different proteins present on the cell. And these cells come in front of the laser, and the laser light hit these fluorochromes, and these fluorochromes and the fluorochrome lights are the fluorochromes get excited, and we get the different fluorescence light. So each fluorochrome light basically means each protein present on the cell. So if you have 4-color flow cytometry, we can identify 4 markers at the same time on the same cell. And if you have 10-color flow cytometry, we can identify 10 markers on the same cell. So this is how we use flow cytometry. So basically, flow cytometry is nothing but single cell proteomics. So this is a dot plot where you can see the forward scatter indicates the size and side scatter indicates the granularity. The cells which are high side scatter are basically granulocyte. The cells which are low side scatter and small in size, low forward scatter are basically yes, the granulocytes, monocytes, and lymphocytes. Now, we use flow cytometry in 2 parts, majorly that is hematolymphoid malignancy and also a small part of round cell tumor. Where do we use? We use identification of the different cells. We use to determine immature versus immature cells, abnormal antigen expression, to identify immunophenotypic signature for the poor prognostic malignancy. Then, of course, the most importantly, minimal residual disease monitoring, diagnosis and prognostication of myelodysplastic syndrome as well as MPN like JMML, and quantitation of therapeutically targeted antigens like CD20 or CD90. These are the different applications which are used in hematolymphoid neoplasm. So coming to the first application, that is diagnosis and classification. So this is a panel in our lab. We use a huge panel. Basically, it's not needed, but it allows us to identify and subclassify in detail as well as prognosticate the tumor in the first attempt. So that's why we use this huge panel. We also use, this is a panel for BL-MRD, which is 10-color single tube, and we use 16-color antibody panel for AML-MRD monitor. Now, how do we identify blast? The common approach is to identify blast is to look at the CD45 expression, so weak to negative CD45 expression, or the markers of immaturity like CD34 and TDT expression identifies the blast. Then we use different markers for the different lineage and marker identification. For example, for myeloid we use 13-33-117, for monocytic 64-11-14, for erythroid 71-235A, for megakaryoblast 41-61-42. For B cell we have CD19, 20, 22, 79A, 10. And for T cell, the commonly used markers are CD1A, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and some of the tumors even 10. Now, there are some markers which you need to confirm the lineage, because these markers, the lineage associated markers, can express can change between the lineages. For example, myeloid markers can be expressed in T ALL, and lymphoid markers can be expressed in myeloid lineage. So we need specific markers. So WHO has given guideline. According to that, the myeloid lineage is defined by using MPO, or monocytic lineage is defined by using 2 out of 4 markers, which include 11C, 64, and CD14. Also, non-specific stage by cytochemistry. For T cell lineage, we have cytoplasmic CD3 or surface CD3, and for B cell lineage, it is little tricky. We need a combination of four markers. So single or two markers doesn't are not enough. So if the CD19 is strong, we need another strong marker out of CD79A, 22, or 10. But if CD19 is weak, then you have to include at least, we have to have two strong markers out of these three. Just to show an example, 11-year-old boy presented with very high count. You can see these are all blasts. Blast looks morphologically lymphoid. Now these blasts are shown by red color, and the normal T cells are shown by blue color here. So these blasts were all surface CD3 negative, and cytoplasmic and the CD7 was positive. If you look at CD4 and CD1A, they were negative. The cells which are falling onto the left lower corner are basically negative. The cells which are moving towards 10⁻⁴ or 10⁻² of the cycles are positive. So here 5 is positive, 5 is negative in the blast, and 1A is also negative. Even 4 and 8 are also negative. So both markers are negative. When we look at the other markers, the markers are CD34 is positive, and some part of the blast also shows CD33. So look at all blasts were positive for cytoplasmic CD3, which confirms the TCA lineage. Now, if you look at the phenotypic signature, it is very typical. It has CD34 and myeloid marker like CD33, but they are negative for CD1A, 5, and 8. This is a classical example of, or a classical feature of something called thymic precursor TLL, that is ETPLL, which is characterized by absence of markers like CD1A, CD5, and 8, and expression of CD34 and myeloid entities like CD13 or 13. So this was an example of how we identified and confirmed the lineage of leukemia, and classify it further. Now, to identify underlying genetics, so some of the features which helps to identify or suggest underlying genetics are like this. CD25 suggests pH positive ALL. Expression of NG2 and absence of CD10 suggests MLL gene rearrangement. The same way in AML, we have CD19 and 56, which suggests CD821 translocation. Presence or absence of CD34 DR and high side scatter indicates APML. And the presence of triple combination, that is 25, 34, and 123, is highly suggestive of FLT3 ITD mutation. Just to show an example, a 5-year boy with 90% blast in the bone marrow. These are the blasts you can see here, that clear-cut blast, and it looks like lymphoid blast again. These blasts are CD19 positive, 34 positive, and 10 positive. These blasts also show CD25 expression, which I mentioned earlier. CD25 is nicely positive, and they also express myeloid antigens like CD13 and CD33. But the other markers were negative. So if you look at the lineage-specific markers, MPO is also negative and cytoplasmic CD3 is negative, but 79 and 22 are nicely positive. We confirm the B cell lineage. Now this was the BLL case, but which has CD25 and myeloid antigen expression, which is highly suggestive of pH positive BLL. So this is how the immunophenotype can suggest the underlying cytogenesis. The same way, the expression of absence of CD10 and expression of NG2 also confirms the diagnosis of MLL gene rearrangement or suggests MLL gene rearrangement is the given. Now, as we know, the flow cytometry is also used for the ploidy analysis. Hyperploidy indicates good prognosis, hypoploidy indicates poor prognosis. How the flow cytometry uses the ploidy for ploidy analysis? So we use a DNA binding dye. So if you have more number of chromosomes, more amount of dye binds to the cell. And if you have less number of chromosomes, like in hypodiploidy, then less amount of dye. So what we do is compare the amount of dye which bound to the tumor cells to that of the internal normal lymphocyte, which has 46 chromosomes. So if you have, and this proportion is called as a DNA index. So if you have less number, the DNA index is low, less than 0.95 indicates hypodiploidy, and more than 1.16 indicates hyperdiploidy. Just an example, we developed a method of DNA ploidy analysis, which was published in 2016. Here we use FX cycle violet as a DNA binding dye. You can see that we have internal lymphocytes, and this is tumor. So tumor and lymphocytes show similar antigen expression. And the next case, you can see the tumor is showing the lesser amount of DNA binding dye, which indicates hypodiploidy. The another case, higher amount of DNA binding dye indicates hyperdiploidy. This is how we use the ploidy analysis. Now, coming to the new entities which are recently defined, the one of the most popular new entity is to pH like ALL. Now, with pH like ALL, we know that 50% of pH like ALL includes CRF2 rearrangement, And this 50% of pH positive allele can be identified as single antibody marker using simple flow cytometry called as antibody against CRS2 or TSLPR. So you can see 50% of pH like ALL can be just identified by using single antibody using simple flow cytometry. This is the best and rapid method to identify pH like ALL, at least in 50% cases. The same way, the new entity, which is BLL with DUX4 rearrangement. Now, this entity is good prognostic, so you can de-escalate the treatment here. And this can be identified by using one single marker, that is CD371. If you are CD371 positive blast, is very specific for the BLL with DUX4 rearrangement. Now, the another entity defined by COG, which is very poor prognostic, with the outcome is less than 18 months in AML, is something called the AML with the RAM phenotype. And this is the example where we use 4x2 formula, that is 4 markers are negative and 2 markers are strongly positive. The 4 markers are negative are CD45, CD38, HLA-DR, and 36. And 2 markers are nicely positive, CD56 and CD34, along with other myeloid markers. So this is very classical example of AML with RAM phenotype, very poor prognostic. Now, coming to the most popular technique nowadays is the minimal residual disease and monitoring. So how do we identify minimal residual disease? So we use two methodologies. One is deviation from normal antigen expression, that is abnormal, and so the second is aberrant antigen expression. So how do we use that? So this is an example. We have normal B cell precursors, that is hematobone. They follow a normal maturation pattern. No matter where which population in the world, they follow the same maturation pattern. So what we do, we put gates outside this pattern, and if the cells are outside this gate, we know these cells are abnormal. This is just an example. This is a diagnostic sample. You can see this CD73 is showing abnormal expression, and they are coming out of the normal gates, and as well as CD86. The same case, you can see the MRD also. You can see CD73 is brightly expressed and CD86 is brightly expressed, and they are clearly out of the gates. This is how we do BL-MRD. Now, not only that, the flow cytometry also can achieve very high sensitivity in this MRD monitoring by using high number of events. For example, we have clearly established a high sensitivity MRD assay in which we can detect 2 cells in 1 million cells going, and this is the highest sensitivity you can achieve by present any technology, including next generation sequencing. This is just an example. Here we acquired 4.6 million cells, and we have 22 tumor cells, getting the MRD of 0.0005%. Next utility is testing in MDS or MPN, and this in MDS and MPS, what we do, the granulocytes or erythroid cells, they usually follow a normal maturation pattern, which we use different combinations of markers. In MDS, this combination or this maturation patterns are lost, which help us to identify this poison. The same in JMML, in almost in 50% of cases, we can identify abnormal blasts. For example, here the 117 loss is abnormal, or here 3313 is lost, or HLA-DR overexpression. So we can use these different combinations of marker and identify even small number of abnormal blasts and identify JMML cases in a suspicion. So the novel therapies we use is like CAR T therapy, where we can identify presence of CAR T cells, CSF or peripheral blood in a patient. This is novel by using antibody against the fragment of CD19. And to quantify the antigens present on the blast, like CD19 in targeted triplet blinatumomab. Now, these are the applications. So next application is round cell tumors. In round cell tumor, we have common tumors like neuroblastoma, rhabdomyosarcoma, Ewing sarcoma, and retinoblastoma. And we can identify by using different combination of markers these tumors. So for example, CD56 and GD2 can identify neuroblastoma. The same way, myogenin and CD81 can identify RMS. Like CD99, CD90, and 56 also help to identify Ewing sarcoma. And in CSF, we can identify by using CD271 and the CD81 retinoblastoma. So these are the examples. The next generation or the next application would be circulating tumor cells can be used to detect the flow cytometry can detect even the very low level of circulating tumor cells in this round. So these were the different applications taking from the diagnosis, classification, as well as monitoring, MRD monitoring of underlying genetics and the therapeutic antigens. Not only that, in round cell tumor also you can diagnose as well as staging bone marrow samples. You can easily identify the different types of tumors and classify them. So these were in short, in brief way to show you what are the different applications of flow cytometry in pediatric oncology. Thank you very much.